ignore what an incredibly difficult weekend it has been for the entire country. I think we're all looking for a way this morning to express what we're feeling and what we're thinking. I personally spent the last couple of days trying to explain to my two young daughters what was happening and why, and it was hard. So this morning, before we begin the show, a few moments to try and process what we are facing and how sports ties into it. Joining me, as always, Nick Wright, Kevin Wilds, and Brian Westbrook is with us. And Brian, I'm going to start with you. What has been your reaction to what's been going on across this country?
Well, Jenna, like you and probably a lot of people across the country, I've spent these last few days obviously watching what's going on in Minnesota, what's going on with the George Floyd situation over the past weekend, the protests, the rioting, and the looting. And the only thing that continues to pop into my head is, how did we get here again? How did we get to this place where we're at once again? And I was able to run into my parents yesterday. And my mother was here in D.C. in '68 when Dr. King was assassinated, and they had riots and marching and protests and looting. And the biggest question that she said yesterday was, how do we get here again? 52 years later, we're still dealing with a lot of the same things, where we have some peaceful protests, but then we have a lot of people taking advantage of the situation and rioting and looting and tearing up the stores that we all frequent, that we put our money in, that we spend time and money in. And that's scary. How do we get here again 52 years later? As a parent of 3 little black kids, we teach them a few things. One, you treat everybody right. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter your skin color. It doesn't matter your class. It doesn't matter your clothes. You treat everybody right. Number 2, you do the right thing. And if you see something wrong, you say something. And the last thing, and probably just as important in what's going on here, is that if I'm not around, your parents and friends are not around, your family's not around, you run to your police. They're your civil servants. They're there to protect and serve you. And just imagine, as I sit down and try to explain to my 3 little black children what's going on this weekend, the question that they've given to me. They've asked, well, if we see something, we're supposed to say something. Why was it that 3 white officers or 3 officers were standing around watching as George Floyd was murdered in the streets? Why is that true, Dad? Why is it true that if we're supposed to run to the police in the time of need, that the police officer, Derek Chauvin, was kneeling on George Floyd for nearly 10 minutes in the streets? Why? How do those things align? And truthfully, I honestly don't have any answers for them. I have to tell them that there are some good people in the world and there are some bad people. Some of the good people in the world are like the officers in Miami, that they greeted the protesters this past weekend on a knee just to show solidarity with them, that they feel the same pain that we feel. Like the sheriff in Flint, Michigan, Chris Swanson, that said, I'm going to put my baton down. I'm going to take my helmet off, and I'm going to walk with you, the protesters. Some of the brothers like LeBron James and Steph Curry, Jaylen Brown, who drove 15 miles to Atlanta to join the protesters. We need that. That's important. There are good people in this world. Then there are other brothers that don't look like me, like Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz and Joe Burrow, that have come out and said, listen, we haven't been through some of the experiences that you guys have been through. However, we're here for you. It just reminds me of when Chris Long put his hand down on Malcolm Jenkins' shoulder as he knelt in silent protest of the flag years ago. He was saying, brother, I haven't been through some of the same things that you have been through, but I'm here with you. And that's meaningful. That's what we need for the change. That's going to help us not to get to the place we're at here again in the future. Nick, as I wrap up here, I just have to ask, where would we be at as a country if our country clamored for the end of racism, the end of police brutality, the same way we're clamoring for the return of hockey and football and baseball and basketball? We all want it back after a couple months of the quarantine. Just imagine the end of police brutality and racism after many, many years of those things going on. If we all clamor for the end of those things the way that we're clamoring for our sports to return, we won't be here again in any time in the near future.
Well, Brian, thank you for sharing that part with your family, with us. And the question you asked, unfortunately, would appear for me